Hello and welcome to Spotlight Indie. I'm Frasier Armitage, part-time robot, full-time nerd. And joining me as co-host is Alex S. Bradshaw. Alex, how goes it?
It goes well. Apparently, I've got a bit of rhythm today. Spelling it
Yeah.
right, hopefully, this week. But
I knew you had it in you.
yeah, exactly.
In,
You
in the last
inspired me.
in the last episode, you're like, I don't dance. And
Yeah.
then you start this
Here I go.
episode dancing. It's like,
Always challenging myself.
yeah, I love it. I love it. Lewis, how are you doing?
Good. I'm in good company, so I'm good. Thank you
Amazing.
for having me.
It's great. It's great to have you. And thank you for joining us last time. Thank you for joining us this time. For anybody who doesn't know Lewis, he is the creator of Burnout. It is the legendary Lewis Carter, filmmaker, audio drama, audio dramatist, writer extraordinaire. The guy's awesome. So I'm so glad to have you on this edition of There's No Such Thing as a Stupid Question. This is the part of the show where we basically take questions that indie creators may have, however big or small or trivial, and we take a deep dive into them and see what we can find. So the question this week is all to do with converting prose into a screenplay and vice versa. So it's all about what's the biggest challenges that you have as an indie creator when it comes to prose and screenplays. And I thought it would be a great place to start with you, Lewis, because you have done both in your experience as a writer. What are your influences for prose? What are your influences for screenwriting and scripts? Are there really good examples that you look to that have influenced you in the way you put them together?
Yeah, the age-old question, isn't it? My biggest influence is a bit of a cliche, and it's Stephen King, who's obviously a prose writer. But I stand by it. I think he's still, I tore through his novels as a child, and to this day, I still look back at those novels and find things in there that I read subconsciously that I'm now thinking, oh, he's doing this deliberately. His foreshadowing, in particular, I think is incredible, and his insistence on focusing on working class characters is something that's close to my heart as well. In terms of the screenwriting, that's not my only influence, but I tend to look more for writers now that are not so much influences, but give me excuses to say this is why I write why I write. If you know what I mean. So Joe Abercrombie wasn't an influence growing up, but I've discovered his writing since I've been writing, and I feel a bit like Seed in a way. He doesn't care as much about the world building, very character focused. Lots of phrases repeating, foreshadowing, things like that. On the screenwriting side of things, Dan Harmon, who created Community, and Craig Mazin on the drama side of things he did Chernobyl. I discovered a Craig Mazin script from his Chernobyl series, and I was like, it was that Stephen King, Joe Abercrombie moment of oh Christ, I write scripts like that. I feel like I'm almost, it's okay now, it's okay. They do it and they're successful. I can carry on doing it, if you know what I mean.
That's really cool. I also love that the first name that you pull with Stephen King is somebody whose stories have been adapted famously into other mediums, and they've taken his prose and made it into scripts. I think that that's a really fascinating that you've got that person whose stories that you love in one form, and yet they are so easily sort of also widely converted into another. I think that's a really interesting sort of first answer, Lewis. That's really, really cool. And what about you, Alex?
I mean, so there's lots of got lots of examples of good prose and good writers for that side of things, but I haven't read a huge amount of screenplays. I'm gonna lay that out now. So I think I quite like prose on the line when it does something slightly unexpected, and you just read it. You read it a kind of description, and you just think that's actually like it's not. It almost just twists the cliche a little bit, and then you, realize that nails or sort of drills into something a little bit more than you know. Her eyes were as blue as the sea, and actually you nail it down a little bit more. And I don't know, her eyes. I'm not going to be able to come up with something off the top of my head. Don't know why I'm even attempting it, but you just sort of take that one step further, and then you just kind of have to read that line again because it was really good. I am now trying to think of an example, but I can't. But like you say, Lewis, like Joe Abercrombie's really good at these, just sort of on the line as well. And can I think of any indie authors? I think Benedict Patrick has got some great. Like his voice comes through very in his Yarns World series, particularly. He's got very like folk tale inspired world, and that works really well. So I think just if you can do something slightly different and unexpected, but that you think when you're reading it is very specific and can take you to exactly where that writer is thinking is a very good thing. But now you put me on the spot, I won't be able to think of any.
It's always the way, isn't it?
So I've only read a few screenplays. So, Lewis, do you have any? If somebody wants to read more screenplays, like I having listened to alternative story stuff and Burnout, is thinking that sounds like a great challenge to be able to write those. Are there any resources that people could go to sort of find any apart from? I assume there are some available, at good bookshops, but are there any sort of repositories or anything that they could find some online?
Yeah, there are. There definitely are. Like you said, there's no reason why you would search up screenplays unless you're really, really interested in writing them, because they're not novels. But there's good resources such as the BBC Writers' Room, which is online. Just be careful. There's such a thing between a post-production script and a filming script or a shooting script. I don't have time to go into that now, but just be aware of what you're seeing on there. And they also have audio drama scripts on there, and play scripts, and television scripts, which is really cool. There's the Burnout scripts are on our website. If you go through burnoutpod.com, you can find them there. And there are what I normally do if I love a film and I think this feels like a really well written film, I'll Google the name of the film with the word script PDF after, and sometimes you get lucky and they're out there, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes you get really lucky and they're out there and they're not the shooting script, they're the production drafts before which the writer was working through, and you'll get to see the difference between what they were working through and what ended up on screen, and that's really fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember going into the library at school and just picking up like the Red Dwarf scripts or like the Blackadder scripts and just sitting down, just reading them over lunch because they were just joyful. That as writing, they're joyful. But I think some of the authors I enjoy the most and some of the script writers that I enjoy the most are the ones where it's almost impossible to adapt one to the other. So you go for someone like if you were to try and convert a Terry Gilliam movie into like prose, it would be a nightmare because he's just got such a distinctive flavor of what he brings to the atmosphere of of his scripts and of his movies. And it's the same with like Wes Anderson or like all of these writers who have this really unique flavor about their scripts and about their storytelling. I love it. I absolutely love it. And in terms of authors, it's the same. The weirder, the stranger, the more I'm kind of clued into it. But then having said that, someone like Philip K. Dick, he would write weird stuff, and his stuff seems to get converted into script all the time. So I don't think it's true that it's impossible to do. But I guess with that conversion process, if someone's been writing prose, which probably a lot of the authors who are listening to this have been doing, Lewis, what kind of tips have you got from imagining something in your head, knowing how to write that in prose, and then also knowing how to write that in a script form? What tips have you got for anybody who wants to transition from prose into scripts?
Yeah, good question. I mean, a lot of authors don't want that, which I think is important to say, and that's totally fine. That's where the likes of myself come in, and Emily Inkpen, who collaborated on Burnout with me and creates the Dex Legacy audio drama, but also writes the novels of the Dex Legacy. But that's never always going to be the case. But if you are a novelist that wants to get into screenwriting, all I could say is I would say what I've said on the rare occasion that I've adapted another author's work onto the screen, which is nobody knows the world better than you. So use that to your advantage, but don't be precious to your own creation. You kind of almost have to think of it as not a new piece of work, but it's a new medium which is going to demand different decisions out of you. And they may be difficult decisions, but if you can make those difficult decisions, far better than not making those decisions and then the project being taken away from you and them assigning a new screenwriter and then doing it for you, which is, I imagine, a really demoralizing position to be in.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when it comes to the differences that a writer might experience if they sit down with the intention of writing a screenplay, or even they want to write part of their story as a screenplay and the rest in prose, what are the big differences that they're going to run into when it comes to their approach to translating what they have in their head onto the page?
Straight away, the length is different. It's a bit, like there's no set page limit for a novel, but for an average novel, let's say we're taking between a 300 to 400 page novel. Obviously films are getting longer now, but in a traditional sense, the average film is, at a blockbuster, you'd be looking at 120 pages for a screenplay. And that's coming down and down every day, apart from your likes of Marvel and stuff. They're going to be different. You can't judge it by that. If you're writing an independent script today, for example, a feature-length script, they're looking at 80 pages. That's a very different page length to 300 pages. So you're distilling the essence of your novel without losing what made you fall in love with the story in the first place, I guess. Emma Jane Unsworth is a novelist turned screenwriter who adapts her own novels, who I think is a very good example of this. I really, really like her writing. It's not fantasy or anything. It's but she's done this very well, and not every novelist can do this well or should do it well, because it can be painful. But if you can do it, I would say just be honest with yourself about, now you've written the novel, you know what the story is, you know what you wanted to say. Go back to the page, study screenplays. You don't have to write it like a really bare bones screenplay. You can put prose in, you can put inner thoughts of characters. You don't listen to all the people who are like, it has to be a bare bones screenplay. It's bullshit. But you do have to strip it back, and you do have to strip it back to the essence of what you wanted to say in the first place. And that will probably, if you manage to do it, it'll probably make you a better writer in general.
How important are the rules of screenwriting? Because I remember when Oppenheimer came out, everybody was going nuts about the fact it was written in first person. And that seems to have broken a massive rule for screenplays. And yet look at all of the plaudits it got. So Is that the norm? Is it the case where if you break rules on screenplays, you can expect the good things to happen, or are the rules there for a reason? Do you think?
I mean, it broke boundaries for Christopher Nolan, but if I wrote a first-person screenplay tomorrow, that's not getting picked up. He's earned his due. He's whatever he writes is going to get picked up, and that's not me being bitter. He's I love Christopher Nolan, but I going back to our chat about Burnout. I like to break the rules in script. I think screenplays, audio drama plays, stage plays are formats where you can really break the rules as long as it's consistent and if there's investors on board, it does make a difference. I don't know if that's the same with novels. I guess you have to get buy-in from your publisher and things like that. But I read a really, really cool novel last Halloween, Incidents Around the House by Josh Mullerman, which totally throws the rules of formatting of a novel out the window, for example. And that's one of the best books I've read all year. So I think sometimes we can get too preoccupied with what the rules are. That being said, I would feel disingenuous in saying to a start-out screenwriter, you can just do whatever you want, because that's not true. There is a hegemony involved in gatekeepers of script writing, and they will pick you out. They will pull you up, and they will say, no, you don't know how to do it. And they may be right or wrong, but you have to navigate that on your own. And I'm trying to be a little bit more hopeful in my answer, but hopefully as you progress in the world of screenwriting and audio screenwriting, you will realize that where you can't break the rules to your advantage. And as soon as you realize where you can and can't do it, break those rules.
So it sounds like it's very similar to any kind of storytelling. It's like you need to understand why the rules are in place and sort of know how to use them effectively before you decide I'm going to break it because I need to break it for a specific purpose, or messing with expectations or something like that.
Absolutely.
Do you think that as well, because the script is the first part of a process and it goes into collaboration? Like, let's take an audio drama, for example. You will write the audio drama, then you will have to go into a recording studio with actors and directors and producers, and you'll have to put all of that together and collaborate together to create this thing. Do you think that having that expectation for your script and knowing that it is just part one of the process is a useful thing to know when you go into it? Because I would imagine for many indie writers who are maybe wanting to challenge themselves and think, I'm going to try a script and see what happens, they'd be so used to having a book where they've done everything themselves on it. And it is collaborative in that they get feedback, they get to adjust it, they get to tweak it, but it's not collaborative in the way that adapting a script into a product would be. What do you think are the differences there that would be good for an indie writer to be aware of when it comes to like the whole recording process and producing process, do you think?
I think the audio experience is far more forgiving of an author coming in, because it's not like film or TV. Don't get me wrong, the director and especially the sound designer and the editor are super important. The stars of audio drama are the actors and the writer. It's as simple as that. In film, it's different. It's the director. It's the director's medium. Television is a bit different. You could argue television is a writer's medium still. Well, that's changing now as well. But in terms of a novelist coming into an audio medium, I think you're gonna have a really good experience. A really good experience. My experience was different in that I pitched a series and then oversaw the series, so I was there from start to finish. That's not going to be what most novelists want or need in adapting their work. They're just going to want to feel trusted in the process, in having their work adapted, and for the most part, there's not a lot you can mess up as long as you've agreed on the script, or if you've written the script's been approved, or if an audio dramatist has adapted the script for you, then presumably you've read it beforehand and you either like it or you dislike it, and then you know you're not going to like or dislike the end product, so you kind of know what you're going to get.
Yeah, that makes sense. In terms of, because you started out as a short story writer before you went into screenwriting, what crossovers did you find where you were doing things in screenwriting and you're thinking, oh yeah, I know how to do this because I've been writing short stories and this is how it works? You know, what were the similarities that you found?
Probably putting too much dialogue in my short stories. And then when I transitioned to the screenwriting side of things, feeling quite strongly that every now and again you should put on the page what a character's thinking in their head. That's important. Not important to the viewer because they're not going to read it. They're not going to read the script. The viewer's going to watch the film. But you know who's going to read the script? The actor, the producer, the director, your first reader who's going to potentially take this on and greenlight it. That's really important, especially even if it was just the actor. That's really important. And you know, I'm a huge fan of big, massive fantasy science fiction books. The idea of eliminating description from a writer's arsenal to me is crazy. Even if they're a screenwriter, never take away from them. To this day, I still put descriptions of what characters are going through or thinking. I know we'll never people will get to listen to or see. But they still make it to the overall experience, and I think that's obviously you've got to restrain yourself a little bit. But I think that's special, and that's something we battled with in Burnout, and that's something I think I'm proud that we've created this way of writing and working going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's a really interesting that's a really interesting thing. It seems probably quite unique to scripts of all kind of flavors, I guess, of that. Yeah, you could put almost that direct kind of, I couldn't write in a novel, I am angry. Well, I could, but it wouldn't be great. But you could, do that almost in a script and just say, he feels very angry about this. He's very disappointed. I couldn't just put that in a novel because that's what the reader will get firsthand and they'll think that's really hitting it on the nose. But that's really interesting that you can do that just kind of, as you say, so the production team and the actors can kind of get that and know that that's a very fascinating sort of bit. Just every medium is unique, and it's really interesting to see the ways that they differ, and you can make the most of that.
Absolutely. The best example I do with that is I can't remember where I got this example from. Like you wouldn't ever write in a script, the camera spins 360 degrees around the protagonist, but what you would write is the character stumbles out of a bar, the world spins around them. That's the difference. We're not trying to make even though a script is a blueprint, whether it's film or audio, even if it's for our own sanity, or for my own sanity, maybe I shouldn't speak for other people. We're writing in a creative, descriptive medium, and we still want to be writers. We still want to put something on the page that comes alive and looks good and feels good and translates to an actor or a reader or whoever.
I think you learn an awful lot about showing and telling when you start writing scripts, because if you've never tried it before, you will probably have an idea as to what showing is and what telling is, a really good idea of it. And I'm not saying that you have to write a script in order to fully understand those concepts, but it just becomes so transparent when you are robbed of all of the tricks that you developed and the craft you've developed on how to show something in prose, because all of a sudden you have to learn how to tell and show in the same sentence in a totally different way when you're writing scripts. And I love that. I love what it taught me when I started moving over to script writing, because I thought there were things that I knew about writing, and then I was like, hang on a minute, this is completely different to what I thought. But another one of those things is dialogue. And you mentioned, Lewis, about dialogue. What is it about dialogue that is so seductive to you as a writer? Because that's all audio drama is, isn't it? It's just dialogue, right? That's all that people hear, and sound design. That's the bulk of it. So what is it about that like ignites your imagination, do you think?
Yeah, it's dialogue, it's sound design, it's also silence. Don't underestimate the silence part of it, even though that sounds facetious. We don't have long gaps of silence in any creative medium, but it's the gaps in what you say that reveal what you say. In a film, you would say "show don't tell." It's the furtive look away. It's the someone leaving a room. In audio drama, it's the stutter. It's the halted breath. It's the same thing. There's no difference. It's just a different medium. You just adapt. It reminds me of something Chris Gregory said to me when we first started working together. He's asked me a couple of times, why, coming from screenwriting to audio writing, why would you get rid of a sense, the visual sense? Why would you choose to get rid of a sense? I don't think you do get rid of a sense at all. It's you're not looking at the screen, but then you're not looking at the screen when you're reading a novel. It's the visuals you're conjuring up in between the ears, literally in the brain of your listener or your reader. And we have a couple of other tricks we draw in audio drama. We have our sound design and our music and whatever. But ultimately, you can take all that away, and you still have to come up with even perhaps even in a more limited sense than a novelist, you'd have to come up with a story mostly through dialogue, and have that be convincing for a listener.
Yeah, because if the dialogue's not good, you're not going to keep listening, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit like what you were saying reminded me of a quote I once saw about the difference between a good pianist and a great pianist. They play all the same notes, but the thing that makes someone great is the spaces in between. And I think that's the whole gist of it, right? It's like you can put it all down on paper, but the translation of that into audio is all about the stuff that's in between what you've written. Yeah.
Like literally when I'm directing something on set, the amount of time we say to actually do it in a look. So we'll have written, sometimes maybe even myself will have written this bit of dialogue. We're like, no, cut that. Do it in a look. And you'll see those moments in films when you watch them. The actor like does something and it conveys this dialogue that you didn't need. So how do you do that in audio? Well, you do it in a stutter, do it in a halted breath, do it in a cough, do it there's all sorts of ways it can be translated. Obviously in novels, you've got the luxury of description, but sometimes after maybe having an experience of writing a script, you might go back and think, I can be restrained here. I can do something a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, I think that's it. The nuance and finesse that you develop when you try both, it's just very, very cool. So for anybody who hasn't ever tried writing a script, I would say it's an exercise that is well worth giving a go. Would you agree with that, Lewis? Do you think that that prose writers can get a lot from screenwriters and screenwriters can get a lot from prose writers? Do you think?
It's a loaded question. I mean, look, I respect novelists over any kind of writer. I love novels, but if you, I I feel like I should be like team script in this. Like,
Yeah,
not that it's
I get it.
but like at the end of the day, like you don't have to write scripts if you don't want to write scripts. But yeah, no, okay, you're right. I for example, I've met novelists who are terrible screenwriters, and I've met incredible, really talented screenwriters who could not and would never even want to entertain the idea of writing a novel. And it's horses for courses. But then there are those beautiful people in between, and I kind of count myself as one of them, who likes to dart between both worlds. And I think it does help in a way. It does bleed into different mediums. I'm writing prose right now, and I'm drawing on my screenwriting experience to be brief and be to get to the point more, and not get bogged down in some elaborate, establishing description. And when I'm writing scripts, and I've always said this when I'm writing scripts, I take more inspiration from novelists than I do from screenwriters, and I utilize that in my script writing every single day.
Yeah, it's a little bit like if you're a novelist and you've written, like, all you've ever written is novels. You've never written a short story, or you've never written a flash fiction piece, or you've never written a poem. It's worth giving it a go, even if what you come up with is rubbish, because you learn something from it. And I would say that same fits with writing a script. Like, you will always going to learn something from going down that process, because there are different challenges associated with it, right? It's like, how do you, like you've mentioned already, how do you convey something without description? How do you put this across just in dialogue? How do you use a cough in a different way? All of these things you'll get a sense of. Like, I remember when I was writing New Yesterday, and the first chapter, which took me forever to whittle down to what the first chapter was going to be, and I thought it was this really like exciting sort of like thriller type scene. I storyboarded it out just to see how it would transfer into a storyboard, and I was like, man, I have to work hard to try and imagine the angles and the shots to make this look interesting, because it's just a conversation. But in my head, it was full of action. But storyboarding it, I was like, this is actually just quite a normal sort of like, pedestrian type. This would be a pedestrian start to a movie. And it's strange how going through that exercise made me realize I need to revise this. I need to make this better because it's too slow. And I wouldn't have got to that if I hadn't tried to do it in a different way. So I'm a big fan of try something new and see.
That's really fascinating. You said I never talk about this because it's not really to do with writing, but when I'm directing something, so whether I've written it or not, people, the inspiration I take is from reading novels. People say, "Where did you learn to direct?" Like, when I read a novel, not a screenplay, a novel, you visualize the angles, the blocking, where everything's placed. You literally sentence by sentence, you're having to cut in your head where the cuts are. And I say that to other aspiring directors now, and they look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't read. I'm like, that's that's fine. There's other ways of learning. You can watch films, you can do whatever you want to do. But for me, and maybe it's a big antithesis, but like my cinematic inspiration for directing whatever I direct ever is by reading novels. I learn how to set the scene on its feet, block the actors, cut the scene sentence by sentence, and that has been almost a cheat code, I would say. I've gone into productions where people are like, "Oh my god, how are we gonna do this? We're in trouble. The time's running out." Like, just let me think about it. Let me read, and I see it like a novel. I'm like, okay, do it like that. It's fine. It might not be the best, but like I know how to get through it. And like for me, like novels are cheat codes. Novels are life. I love, any kind of creative should be reading novels.
Yeah, I love it. And so all you spotlight indies that are out there, just keep writing novels. Like, if you take from this some enthusiasm and some encouragement to try a new medium, give it a go. Let us know how you get on. But if you've listened to this conversation, you've seen that actually the art you're producing is inspiring creatives like Lewis and screenwriters and people who are making things in this medium and in this space. Just keep going, just keep doing what you're doing, right? Lewis, thank you so much for chatting through the answer to that question and showing us what is involved in screenwriting. What are the challenges? What are the differences? What are the similarities? It's been a really useful discussion. I really appreciate it. For anybody,
I'm probably gonna go off and try and find some script ideas now. Give it a go.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a long thing. Just a scene between characters. Just see what it's like. You might take like a chapter where there's like a really like plain conversation between like a wizard and a gremlin, and you might just go, do you know what? This is fairly easy to translate into a script. Just try it. See what happens. See what you learn. It'd be great. Lewis, thank you. For anybody who wants to find out more about you or more about Burnout, where can they do so?
You can listen to our fiction podcast, Burnout, by searching Burnout Alternative Stories, wherever you find your podcast of choice, or go to our website, burnoutco.com. And yeah, that's it. Just thank you for having me, guys. I really, really enjoyed this. Really, really enjoyed both of your company, and I hope to do it again soon in some capacity.
Yeah, it's been great to have you, Lewis. Thank
Really,
you so
really
much.
Thank you.
And Alex, where can people find you?
At Alex S. Bradshaw at the various social medias, and then alexsbradshaw.com. And they can find Spotlight Indie at Spotlight Indie at the various social medias and spotlightindie.co.uk, just to confuse things, to make those two websites different. Frasier, what about you? Where can people find you?
I think you speak my name 3 times and I appear, I think is the way it normally works.
That's you, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You're always very annoyed when I do it. Apparently, you're always brushing your teeth when I do it, and you find it very annoying.
I've gone through so much Aquafresh because of you, Alex. I cannot even. Yeah.
All right, I've got the wrong schedule. That's my fault. Sorry.
Yeah, with teeth like these, they need brushing constantly. So yeah, no, at Frasier Armitage or FrasierArmitage.com. Oh, like anybody here, if you're here, you know where to find me. Just leave a comment. I'll be there. And thank you so much for all of the viewers, for everybody who's tuned in. Keep tuning in, and we will see you next time on Spotlight Indie.